Hello to our first session for My Period Data is Mine. We will have monthly meetings showing what we are all about, why we are doing this project, what we're driving at, what the goal should be, what the timelines are going to be, and how we can help people out there in the community. So, first of all, I think for everyone watching this video, I think it's important for you to know who we are and what we stand for. So this time round, as an exception, I'm going to go first. Because my period data is mine was my initial reaction to the Dobbs decision in the United States of America, which ultimately revoked women's rights to abortion in the US. Yes, in theory, there are abortions that are available in some of the states, some of the conditions, but ultimately the Supreme Court has overruled the long-standing Roe v. Wade decision that it's a woman and her doctor who can decide what's best for the woman. Now it's different, and half the states, roughly, abortions are no longer legal. There are very few to no exceptions, and in my very own opinion, this is a slippery slope towards a rather dystopian future. So there are a couple of options on how to react to this decision. One of them is get angry and get on your high horse and spout hatred forward. Or another one is to be productive and do something. Because ultimately, in order to know whether a woman is even pregnant or not, is to look at data around her. And one of the data is period data. When is the woman ovulating? When was the last period? Was there a little bigger gap since the last period and her regular schedule or not? Things like that. And currently, given the situation in the US, this data is very much available to law enforcement. Given the laws in the US, as soon as law enforcement is asking any of the platforms out there, any of the app providers, they will have to hand over the data held in apps. And that's where we come in. We have a plan. We have an idea to have a period tracker, which is on your phone. You type in the data on your phone, you lock it on your phone, it's encrypted on your phone, and your data stays on your phone. Your data is not uploaded into the cloud, it is not shared with anyone, it is not handed over to law enforcement. Nobody can hand it over because we don't have it. It's only you who has the data on your phone. If you want to share the data and show it to your gynecologist, take it with you. Take it to Planned Parenthood. It's not my business to know what you do with it. It's your data, your phone, your body. So this idea has a rather tragic background, but ultimately in the long run, I think this is the way forward, possibly for all healthcare, but definitely for period tracking, because even I want my data to belong to me and nobody else. And now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Marcel.
Hi, my name is Marcel. I came into this from a very much technical background about keeping data, all data, private. So we have a sister website called Keep Data Private, which is where I came in. And I think that it's not just period data, but I think it's all data. And as Daniela hinted at earlier, it's the health data as well as period data. But going beyond that, I think we should have tools that allow us to keep our data private by default. Instead of saying, well, my data on Facebook is public, except when I decided what I would like it to be private, I think we should have a default stance that your data is private. And as Daniela suggested, you should be able to decide who you want to share it with, when you want to share it with that person or people, and if you decide you no longer want to share it with that person, that should be under your control as well. So it's very much about, from a data perspective and keeping data private perspective, that I very much support this project and what it's doing, as opposed to the specific data that is stored. I think it's about keeping the data private. So from that perspective, I've been looking at how we can keep the data encrypted on your phone. So we already have an initial step of keeping basic data encrypted on the phone. You will type your passcode in, whatever code you want. You can have your basic 4-digit PIN number if you want, but you can also type in a long, strong password into the app, and only with that password can you decrypt your data. Nobody can force you to decrypt your data unless you choose to enter that passcode into the data to be able to recover the data. And what we want to do is basically not only encrypt the data per se, but to encrypt the database that stores all the data as well. So when you enter the decryption key or your passcode, it decrypts the database itself. So even if somebody gets hold of the phone and you get some techie who gets access to the physical phone and try and get access to the data, all they will find is an encrypted file that still requires the passcode. And that's where you want to be, is that even with physical access to your phone, unless you have the passcode, you will not be able to access the data. There will be no backdoors, there will be no operating system, whether it's Android or Apple or whatever phone technology comes in the future, that will be able to get past that by being able to access the operating system files, because even the data inside the phone will be encrypted before it can actually be accessed by the application itself. So that's where I'm coming from, very much a technical background, trying to get to a point where we can encrypt data per se and then build the application on top of that. So the data privacy is a default, not an afterthought. You don't try and encrypt things later. Don't try and say, but the data is encrypted between your phone and our databases. It's like meaningless, because anybody who has access to the database, as Daniela mentioned, law enforcement comes in and says, here's a warrant, we want access to the data. The company is legally obliged to hand over that data. And if it's not encrypted on that end, then your data is not encrypted, it's not yours. So by keeping the data on your phone and making sure that only you and only when you decide to decrypt your data will you be able to access it. There are obviously concerns with all these data things. What happens if I forget my passcode? As to how can I access my data? But we can build that kind of thing in, and almost the opposite effect. If you, by default, your data is encrypted, you can decide, look, I want to be able to back up my data separately, on some USB stick or something like that, so that I can get access to the data later. It's not on my phone, but I can back up the data somewhere else and keep it safe somewhere else. And if I lose my phone, that I can still get access to my data and restore my data some other means. We can look at that as well. But I think from the starting point, we want to be the data is encrypted by default, not the other way around.
Exactly. And how good does that sound? Your data is going to be safe beginning to end. It will never get lost. You'll always have a hold of it. Brilliant. Even more importantly, and one thing that many people don't think about is that you can be tracked. Physically, your location is trackable as long as your phone is switched on. Now, our app is going to work without a Wi-Fi connection. You still can access the data without having the connection switched on. So if you do have an appointment with your gynecologist or whomever really, what you do is when you're at home, before you set foot outside, switch it to flight mode, do what you need to do. When you're back home, switch flight mode back on. Your period data will be accessible. You can show it to anyone who needs to see it, and everything is right there for you. And again, you are the one who controls your data, and only you. So if you think this is a good project, if you're as excited about it as we are, then get in touch, help us. We will need some people and some skills that we don't have ourselves. We need help with that. And this help can either come from volunteers like yourself, or it can come in the form of donations, so we can hire people as and when. We don't want to grow into a huge company. We simply want to create this product, put it out there. And that's another good point I would like to mention now, is that We want to put it out there for free. Now, when people say there is no free lunch, sure, that's correct. But in this one instance, we are giving it away for free because we know how difficult it can be for people who are not born into the right families, people who are not born with a lot of money, to continuously having to pay subscriptions, continuously having to pay out of pocket for things that should be there as a given. So we are going to give it away for free. That does not mean that we are given things for free. So that's why, if you can help us, if you have skills in reaching out to people, in creating the design, in encryption, do get in touch, tell us you want to join us, and I'm sure there will be a space for you to contribute. Or alternatively, if you think this is a great project that deserves support, get in touch. We're happy to receive donations at this point.
I think also worth pointing out that it's not just free as in gratis. We will have the software open sourced, so people can view the software itself, and people can review the encryption, and people can review everything, and confirm for themselves that the application is secure if they want to. All third-party analysts can have a look at it and confirm that data is secure. If you think about messaging apps, from WhatsApp to Telegram to Signal, the only one that is known to be secure now is the Signal app, which is an open source free app as well. So we're following that approach to getting MyPeriod data out there. We provide it with the same license that Signal has provided, because they also provide secure encrypted communication between two people. We want to provide a similar type of approach to this app. So it will not just be free as in gratis, it will also be free as in open source and available to all. So we're not going to be making money from the store products or things like that. If anybody wants to make a copy, they're free to make a copy, upload it onto the phone. You don't even have to use an Android store. You can use whatever phone you want. You can compile the app, install it on your phone, and go from there. You don't even have to have the Google Play Store knowing that you've installed the app. That it will be up to you to decide how you want to install the app on your phone.
Well said. Is there anything else that we should be mentioning here, that we need to make sure people know about us, about the project?
I think it's worth mentioning the previous campaign we had, and what
Yes.
happened with that, and what we've done since then.
Yes, thanks for the reminder. So we did do an Indiegogo campaign at the end of 2022, towards the end of 2022, which unfortunately did not reach its goal. So we did have some pledges which we returned, given that it wouldn't be ethical of us to keep money knowing that it's not going to fully fund the project per se. You still can have a look at it out on Indiegogo. If you don't find it, get in touch and I can send you the link to that as well. And since then, unfortunately, we can't spend our whole day focusing on this project alone. So that is why we're asking for part of why we're asking for donations as well, so we can spend more time focusing on it and progressing it. What we did do is we have set up the website now. We've started looking at which social media we want. Again, slow progress at this point. We're strongly expecting that until the end of the year, things will ramp up. The practical basic steps have been done. So now it's more about putting the color in and getting it up and running. And that's it from the non-technical side.
Yeah. I think also from the perspective of, it's not just the US. I mean, the US has started a ball rolling, and the whole period data privacy is becoming more important outside the US as well. And I think therefore that despite the fact that we were unsuccessful with the initial campaign, it's not because people are less interested. I think it's even more important now, and it really is still something that we really need to make available to people as soon as we can.
Yes. On that note, there is a proposition in the US currently to curtail freedoms for contraceptions in the US, for example. So if I were a woman, I'd leave. Personally, it's obviously up to you if that's your situation,
We have the ability to.
and the ability to. Then Poland, for example, has a register of all women of birth of child birthing age and their pregnancies and what's happening to them. Meaning, if you register as pregnant somewhere, anywhere, and then 2 months later it turned out that your period was late because you were stressed at work, then you will have problems. You may even be thrown in jail because abortion, whilst legal, is not is still frowned upon, and through related laws can cause you trouble. The same in the UK. Whilst abortion technically is legal, you still can run into legal issues surrounding how you go about it. So all of those laws, while people think, oh, the US is so far, far away, it's happening across Europe in the same way. For example, Spain, yes, of course you can have abortion. We're no longer in the dictatorship. However, most doctors will refuse it on religious grounds. I don't believe in it. And what then? And that is the story in most countries in Europe at the moment. Uh, Asia is not an exception either. So if you say, oh, yeah, yeah, Asia, they're open-minded. Well, they have declining birth rates. And what's the first thing that happens when birth rates decline? You look at, why are women not pregnant? Why are they having abortions? So in China, for example, abortions are no longer being offered the way they used to because, well, birth rates are declining and they have done away with the one-child policy already. So what's wrong? Things like that. So don't be surprised to find it on your own front door. Don't be surprised to be impacted by it yourself. I speak from experience and not the nice one. So don't take this lightly. If you're watching this, I'm guessing you're interested. If you want to help, get in touch. Please do. Um, we're not doing this for ourselves. Um, I do think, and I wholeheartedly believe this, that the world needs it, and now so more than ever. And I don't think it's going to get better in a hurry. So help us make this a reality. If we get funded fully by the end of the year, it can be there within a few months. If you're a security expert, again, get in touch, help us. It's not a big project. It really can be done relatively quickly if all the skills come together. So get in touch. We value your input, your time, your skills, your knowledge, of course, your money as well. Um, and that's it from me. My mind is going to a very dark place when I think about the news articles I've been reading this year, and it's just getting worse. So more about that in our blog, which is going to be more active over the coming weeks as well. So do listen out, watch what we are talking about on a regular basis. Join us on these calls as well. We will be publishing the links going forward, so you know in advance how to join, how to ask questions, and of course Patreon. This is where we open our hands for donations. Have a look there as well. Become a member, and make this world slightly better.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else I've missed out today?
No, I think that's enough for today.
But yeah, as I said, it's not for us. It's not for me. But I do have a niece who is 22 years old at the moment. She may need it one day. So think about that. Think about your nieces, your children, and anyone else who may need the period tracker.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye bye.